So Greenland, Guy, I
Right.
don't know whether you've seen, there's been a big conversation going on internationally about the status of Greenland. Mr. Trump now has obviously taken control. He called himself an overlord this morning. The Americans will continue to be the overlords of Venezuela. So he's obviously taken Maduro out from Caracas and flown him to New York to go on trial. And now I say he's turned his mind, but every day is a new school day, isn't it, with Trump? There's always a new story. But yesterday's story was about Greenland, which is a huge ice island, effectively off the north coast of Canada, basically, which he wants ownership of. He's made no secret of this fact since he took office, and he's upset the Danes, who of course are the authority in Greenland. They have autonomy in Greenland, but it's been a Danish region since 1721, so they've been there quite a while.
And do they have sovereignty, or is it a little bit like Hong Kong, which is like a lease? Do you happen to know?
Yeah, no, they do have sovereignty. No, they have sovereignty. The Greenlanders have autonomy, so that they deal with all their own
affairs.
It's a wee bit like United Kingdom in the sense that the Greenlanders deal with everything apart from defence and international relations, which
a bit like Scotland
by Copenhagen. Exactly.
Reserve matters and all that.
Yeah, quite.
Okay.
And they were working towards total independence. They want total independence, the Greenlanders, and poll after poll after poll have shown that that's where they want to go. They don't want to be part of Denmark anymore, but they don't. 85% apparently in the last poll said that they didn't want to be part of the United States either. They want total independence. Now, whether that's practical, there's only 57,000 of them, so it's not wouldn't be a huge independent nation. But there are smaller nations around the world, and I suppose it depends upon what they do with their minerals and reserves and fishing. At the moment, it's quite a significant amount that they receive from Denmark to keep the economy going.
Yes, I've read that. Yeah. So it would be a big hole in their budget, wouldn't it?
It would. So they'd have to look at some way of filling that hole. And I'm not quite sure, I haven't, to be fair, I haven't read the manifesto of the party on Greenland that's looking for full independence. So I don't know where they think.
And do we know why Denmark are that bothered? 57,000 people, load of ice. Is there something? There's a lot of mineral wealth, isn't there, underneath the?
There is a lot of mineral wealth. Yeah, there is a lot of mineral wealth, although it's not being exploited. And apparently, the Danish government and the Greenlandish people have offered American companies the opportunity to exploit that. They'd be more than happy for them to go. This is the irony of all this. Apparently, the Americans have had access to Greenland for years and years and years. They took it over and administered it during the Second World War.
Right.
Because there was a fear that the Nazis would use Greenland to attack mainland America. And since then, they've had the opportunity they've got bases there, they've got a space base there, the Americans, and they had up to 10, 15 years ago, 15,000 troops on the island.
Wow.
But they've reduced that number down to less than 1,000. They've taken that decision to reduce that number down. And now Trump is talking about there being the threat of the Russians and the Chinese, assume he thinks, using Greenland as a base to attack the US, which is very strange.
This sounds too simplistic, but my understanding is as the ice has melted, it's far more accessible by sea, or parts of it is, than it used to be. So in theory, there's a greater risk. Okay. So
yeah.
So basically, Trump says, I want Greenland. Greenland, Denmark have said, no, thank you. Greenland have said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So who's got the next move?
Where are we now, effectively?
Where are we now?
Well, they've made a point, the American government, of, and this is the Secretary of State. I forget his name. Can you remember his name?
Oh, the American Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Rubio.
Rubio has made a point during
Little
the week.
Marco.
Little Marco, yeah. has made a point of saying during the week that military action won't be taken off the table. This is a president that will never take military action off the table, albeit they're suggesting that military action is fairly unlikely because there's
Against
As one of the Greenlanders, Greenland politicians was saying yesterday, the military action would involve a general turning up at the town hall and saying, we're in charge now. So
few harpoons, maybe?
Well, quite. And it just seems, so what they're saying now is that they're going to try and buy the island. Now, whether buying the island is because Denmark have said it's not for sale, and Greenland have said it's not for sale. But what they're saying is that they're not going to, the suggestion they're not going to buy the island in a traditional sense, that they're going to bribe each Greenlander and say, this is what you can have if you join us and vote to join us.
Okay.
Because there is something in the Constitution, apparently, that allows Greenlanders to vote on their own future. So if, for example, 57,000, if you were to turn around and say to every Greenlander, I don't know, we'll give you £100,000.
Yeah.
If you join us, they'd probably get a positive result, wouldn't they? I don't know.
Well, it would help, wouldn't it?
It would. It certainly would, yeah.
But you still the obstacle of the sovereign power, Denmark.
Yeah.
So that would keep the Greenlanders happy, but presumably you have to come to the same arrangement with Denmark.
Well, yes.
Or take it by force.
Well, I mean, he's had a funny couple of days talking about Scandinavian countries, hasn't he? Trump, he was talking about the Nobel Peace Prize. Nobel spelled Noble. And he was having a go at the Norwegians because he said that effectively saying that the Norwegian government, who are members of NATO, wouldn't even give him the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, I don't think it's within the gift of the Norwegian government to start. I think the Nobel Organization might have something to do.
There's a panel, isn't there?
He's obviously got no consciousness of Alexander Nobel, the guy who started all this. It's nothing to do with being noble, but he seems to be. So he's had that 2 and 8 with them, but he's intent that he's going to have Greenland. I mean, he did all this on the plane during the week. Did you see him? He does this where he leans around
in the doorway.
First class. Yeah, that's right. And talks to all the peasants in
the back.
Economy class. Yeah, where he was talking about that they were going to have Greenland.
That's where he called that reporter Miss Piggy, didn't he?
That's the problem, isn't he? He's entertaining, but he's not quite all there, is he?
No, not really.
That's the problem. So I think, just to give you a little bit more, some of Greenland's history, it was originally discovered by a Norwegian, actually, in 982.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah, quite a while back. Yeah, and way, way, way before 76, obviously. So if anything, maybe the Greenlanders have a claim to the United States. They were there first. And that was Eric the Red. One of these, I imagine Eric the Red was a guy with a big red beard and a horny helmet.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Imagine him stepping aboard. And then, as I say, 1721, this guy Hans Egede. Egede, you're more of a Scandinavian pronunciation.
Yeah, no, I'd go with that pronunciation. Yeah, I'd go with that.
He colonised it for the Danes, and they've been there ever since. Like I say, in the Second World War, the Americans took it over.
So hang on, did you say that Eric the Red was a Dane or a Norwegian?
No, Eric the Red was a Norwegian. But
so what happened was, there was something happened between Eric the Red and
there must have been.
Negedy.
Yeah, I think Eric the Red probably went back after a period of time.
He was probably freezing if he was a redhead.
I was just about to say it's bloody cold here. I'm going back to warm Norway.
Okay.
Yeah, back to Ålesund. Yeah.
Ålesund, very good. Yeah.
Did you think that is Norway, isn't it, Ålesund?
Do listeners may be intrigued to know that every time I search for my local weather, Ålesund comes up on BBC Weather because we've been there on our boat trip, and for some reason it's got an A with a circle above. It's one of those Ålesunds.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so back to the 1700s, the Danes populated it, but presumably this is not the indigenous population. They're a different group of people.
No, they're a different group. I don't know what the split is between the indigenous population. I don't think from what I can tell, there's quite a large indigenous population there. As opposed to, although the Danes took control. They're not very popular, the Danes, from what I can tell in Greenland. Greenland
in general,
they want their independence. Yeah, they feel as though they've been colonised, and this is why in the 1970s they've been building back to some form of autonomy, which the the
Right.
Greenlanders have got now. They run their own affairs, I think, as we discussed just now.
But presumably that will be a mixture then, as you say, of the indigenous and immigrants the other way.
Yeah. And the Americans have offered supposedly a similar arrangement that they can have autonomy and run their own affairs and they're just to protect. But the big question is here, I mean, I understand what you were saying just now about the suggestion that as the caps melt, that there'll be more access in terms of getting ships and boats there. There's another suggestion that it's also the most direct route were Russia to decide to fire an intercontinental ballistic missile. So you'll have to go across Greenland to get to the major, because you know the Earth's curved. They showed.
Yeah, I was aware of that.
The direct. I thought you were a flat Earth man, but there we are.
More of a flat white, Sean.
You can be surprised. But so that's the other suggestion.
Right.
But this is ridiculous, isn't it? If they've got full access to it already, now the Greenlanders and the Danes aren't denying them any access that they want, and they've got all the necessary information that they need. It's part of the NATO alliance. They can put stuff wherever they want throughout the NATO alliance.
Would have thought so.
Why is this such an issue? I can only come to the conclusion that this is part of a grand imperialism. This is expanding American territory and Trump's legacy.
Or if you look at what's underlying all these big moves, if you looked at that joint agreement that was signed with Russia over the Ukrainian territory, that was investment by American companies and getting the returns, wasn't it? If you look at what's happened in Venezuela, where the suggestion with all these American oil companies will suddenly start to invest. They did that before and lost their money, but anyway, they will start to invest. And now what about the mineral wealth in Greenland? So my suspicion is that there's a sort of commercial element to everything here.
So do you think that, I understand what you're saying, but it's not like the difference between here and Venezuela nationalized their oil
they did,
companies and effectively took control of it for the state.
They did.
Whereas Greenland have been saying, come and develop these fields for us. We're not, you can make the profit from it. We'll obviously take our cut. The only way one could look at that in terms of being commercial advantage is if the Americans come in and say, we're going to take the whole lot, including the tax revenues and everything else from it.
Then the whole thing's a mystery then. And we'll just have to see how it plays out, won't we?
Yeah. Well, the way things are going at the moment, by next week, they'll have probably marched in.
Marched in.
Or one of them have marched in anyway.